Hello, Tier enthusiasts. It is Untier Talk back. We missed a week. Sorry.
How bad?
Yeah. Basically, I didn't have my computer, and we had special guest Specs Jigglypuff, who we're going to have to get back on sometime now. And he recorded the audio for us. But for whatever reason, according to him, it has audio, but every time he sends it to me, it doesn't have audio, so I just can't do it. I really don't know. That might come out eventually as some extra thing, but basically all we ran over is PUPL Week 1, which is going to be pretty updated. I'm just going to real quick run through a quick summary of what we talked about. Basically, we look at a couple of highlight games, overall trends, and anything interesting sets that got used. So our highlight games were Tasker versus Kushalos, even though the ending very much broke my heart, and Lighthouse's TKO. I would recommend checking out both of them if you want to see better games. Tasker Kush, obviously, two very hyped up players. Lighthouse TKO was a fascinating Oras showcase of Banded Monferno. Interesting sets we looked at. Curse Rock's Regirock got picked up. Offensive Calm Mind Pom Pom did a lot of work in a couple games. I used Physical Trick Room Executor. There was the Swalot, the Life Orb Offensive Swalot from Chris Loud and DPP. Spec Shiftry. Advantage used it in Black White. Umfuga made it, I believe. And then just the trends that we noticed, there were quite a few Agrons, lots of Wheezing and Ferroseed Hazard Stack, Toxic Spikes coming back, and just still looking very offensive coming up to the tier shift, where we did get false stats today, but based on what they look like, if the stats are anything like that, we're probably going to be going even more offensive. So yeah, that's just the brief rundown of me just throwing out a summary. Hey, Jad, did I forget anything you wanted to... Hey, Jad, you muted yourself. I mean, I know I was talking for a while, but that doesn't mean you have to just leave. Well, I'm sure he'll be back in a sec. In the meantime, week 2, right now as we're recording, week 2 is done. Week 3 is not up because some people didn't send in their lineups. It's like,
Hello?
Are you back now?
Yes.
Alright, so I just did the rundown of what we talked about first week with Specs. Did you hear anything I said?
Not much.
No? Alright, well, we'll just leave that for the viewers and move on then. Basically, just a quick summary. Since we missed a week, and I'm sorry. I didn't want that.
Yep.
Okay, week 2. Interesting week. I guess a little less highlight than last week, in my opinion, but became a little more like solid games overall. So, do you want to talk about the 2 highlight games we picked out?
Yeah. So our 2 selected highlight matches are TJ versus TSR, which was it was like almost an enigma to fight, like how people should be team building versus how people shouldn't be team building type of thing. And Lax versus Dibs, which is really showing how potent a really good offense team can be in this current meta, and how you can just sort of manipulate your opponent to sort of play into your hands almost. You know what I mean? So, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Do you want to start with TJ versus TSR? Because that game, I feel like it transitions well into the other game.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, what do you mean by good team building versus bad team building? Because I'm actually the one who built TJ's team, so maybe I can help offer some insight there.
Yeah, so if we look at TJ's team, it's Jinx, Shiftry, Probopass, Spiritomb, Toad, and Poliwrath. Toad being Togedemaru. So, and if you look at TSR's team, it's Dugtrio, Lantern, Metang, Primate, Tangela, and Swanna.
And no, I'm not putting this stuff on the screen. It's a podcast. You guys can deal with it.
Yeah. We'll put a link in the description like we promised last week, but nobody saw that. So,
yeah.
Um, Basically, what I saw with TJ's team that I didn't see in TSR's team was that TJ was actively going out to win the game, whereas TSR was trying to not lose. And I feel like in PU, in Generation 7, just like overall, it can be very easy to fall into the trap where I'm going to try and not lose this game. I'm going to try and run this really fat balance core, and nobody's going to beat it, and I'm just going to get this free win, right? Whereas you can't really do that in PU at the moment. There's too many threats. There's too many things that go like wild on fat balance cores. So you need to have more offensive impetus than what was like you could previously like afford. So like if you look at TSR's fat core, you have like Lantern, Metang, Tangela, and then his offensive core is like the Doug Trio, which is what was it set in the game? I believe it was Subtoxic, right?
Let me take a quick look. It actually never did anything. It came out and it came out as TJ doubled into Spiritomb, and then he switched and got Pursuited and died.
Yeah, so the leftovers kind of implies that it was Subtoxic.
Oh, was it lefties? Then yeah, probably.
Yeah. And the Primate looked like it was Choice Scarf because of turn 1, and the Swanna, the result has to be Defog.
The Swanna was Defog, and yeah, it was he was also Subtoxic Lantern, and he's also Toxic Metang, which honestly, I don't see why he wasn't running like some kind of Hex user at least, because that's a lot of Toxic without really like much to abuse that necessarily. Like Toxic abuses itself, obviously, like it chips things on its own, but you'd probably want a little more if you're running triple Toxic things. I don't know.
Yeah, here's the thing with that, like, if you look at his team, how many things have reliable recovery? You have the Tangela, which has regen and synthesis and whatever, and you have the Swanna, which isn't necessarily like renowned for being bulk lord Swanna, right? You don't really hear that.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what's gonna really be abusing the Toxic? Like, sure, Tangela like sits there, but it's basically free setup for anything offensive in the tier. Like, apart from say Kingler, like, loads of things just come in on Tangela, click their setup move, and like threaten immediately. And when you have like a core that doesn't have recovery, like Lantern plus Metang, that I feel like TSR was like setting himself up to lose. Like he was going into the game like, I really can't lose this game. I really can't lose this game. When you have that mentality, you just end up losing the game. Like the thing that I liked about TJ's team is that he really sort of went for the win. Like Shiftry plus Jinx is a offensive core that you can use to like break your Scun tank and then just kind of like go apeshit. But like I didn't see that out of TSR. TSR was much more like restrained in his building.
Yeah.
Didn't really go after it, and I feel like that was his biggest downfall.
And TJ also just played a lot more offensively in general. You had the double into Doug Trio with the Spiritomb that just trapped it. You had Poliwrath encoring the Lantern that he predicted to be faster. Encore Poliwrath, by the way, quite a fun set. I'm not really down with Subtoxic, to be honest. Like, it's fine, but I just find it kind of mediocre. Honestly, like, I just like the game because I don't even think, even with all what we're talking about teams, I'm not even sure TJ had an incredible matchup.
Definitely not an incredible matchup.
Like, the team is kind of based around Jinx, and TSR brought like the untrappable steel type Metang that'll take like 20 from Earth Power and just Earthquake, and you know he didn't necessarily have like he wasn't gifted the tools to break or whatever. He didn't bring something like Bloom Doom Pyro or whatever that could like run through TSR's team. He had like, you know, an average matchup at best, but I feel like he played it a lot more offensively and was really kind of using those strengths. And I thought it was a much more impressive game than I think we're necessarily used to seeing from TJ, who's not a bad player, but still hasn't like made a huge breakout or anything. So, and as my player, as someone I bought, I was very happy with the result of that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like, this game is like the epitome of scared player versus not scared player. You know what I mean? Because when you play with fear, you tend to make more restrained plays, more like sensible plays. Whereas TJ wasn't going out to play scared or to, you know, go out into his defensive wall whenever they brought out a threat, for example. Like TJ was out there trying to break, trying to win the game, and I feel like that was the difference in the game. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how TSR replies because he's 0-2 now. So like it's very easy to fall into that like spiral that like I can't lose this game, so you go and play even more passively.
Yeah, but I
Um,
definitely think he's better than that overall. Like I
yeah,
do,
no,
he definitely has the chops to come back from an 0-2.
yeah, no, like as long as he doesn't like fall into this trap of like going more passive and more like generally like restrained, um, he can make a comeback. I think he needs to bring back more of the jank stuff that he used to win in exhibition potentially. But overall, like it was definitely an impressive win from TJ.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess that moves us into Lax versus Dibs, which is I feel sort of similar in that Dibs
Yeah.
brought a team that was stronger offensively, even though Lax's was much less balanced. He had the Swords Dance Combuskin, which was a big wall breaking threat that was kind of able to forcibly like just get rid of Tangle and Hitmonchan pretty early on. And then the big surprise was once again both these games involved a Jinx, which is not something by any means commonly used. Same with Shiftry and TJ's team. But these were two big wins for Jinx because you saw it just breaking down Probopass on its own with the fascinating set Sub, Lovely Kiss, Nasty Plot, Ice Beam with the Icium Z that just totally blew through the Probopass, chipped away the Togedemaru, and took the win for him. And I don't know that's the same that playing more offensively. I don't necessarily think Lax played bad. It would have been a very difficult endgame to win though, especially depending because like he said something about Stealth Rock getting up really mattering, but I'm pretty sure Haunter was going to do a ridiculous amount of work because he forced out the Hitmonchan, because he forcibly weakened the Probopass.
Yeah.
Really, all it let him do was just sack the Haunter in the end game instead of winning with it.
Yeah, I feel like this game was sort of like it's one of those games where Dibs got the lead matchup right, and he used that momentum to just snowball. Often, when you're using an offense team, getting the lead matchup correct can almost like give you that extra advantage going into the game because the balanced player will often be on the back foot. So, in order for him to come back into it, you need to be, making plays, right? So when you see Dibs like with the Combuskin, he comes in, he just sort of like uses the offensive pressure to just spiral the game out of control. There's nothing Lax could have done, to be honest. Like as soon as the Buskin started setting up, like the game was like on a headed trajectory already, and I feel like that's part of the appeal behind offense, in the fact that you can sort of pin a balanced player down using your offensive threats and use the offensive pressure to be your backbone rather than the what's it called? Rather than like an actual physical defensive core itself.
Yeah, it made a strong case for why you have offense versus like a little more balanced team. Maybe edging to the side of like balanced offense, but still, just a stronger momentum. And yeah, I think it's totally fair to call it offense, even though it had like Regirock, Rocky Helmet, Scum Tank, Girder. The one thing that definitely worried me about Dibs' team is that it's like a little slow. Like I want to assume it's Scarf Haunter, which I still kind of find shitty speed control because if your speed control, like as soon as it revenge kills something, is that susceptible to getting pursuit trapped, that could definitely have been very dangerous. But because Lax had a really slow team himself, where it was Scarf Togedemaru, and then the next fastest thing was either the Fat Sensu or the Stoutland.
Yeah.
Just like the relatively slow teams from both players interested me because that's not necessarily something you see a ton.
Yeah, no, I'm it's this really weird. It's this really weird scenario because Dib's team has incredible offensive synergy, but you look at it defensively, and yeah, you can see like immediately if there's a pursuit trap here, and then there's a pivot Pokemon here, that Dibs potentially loses this matchup, which is why I thought it was so crucial for him to get the lead right. I feel like if Lax got the lead right, let's say what was the lead in the end?
I really don't know about getting the lead right thing. So Dibs leads with Girder on the Togedemaru,
Yeah,
which is correct, but then he instantly knocks off into a Sensu, which then U-turns out of the Regirock switching into Tangela, and turn 2, Lax is the one with the momentum. The key thing here is that Lax uses his Sleep Powder, and then the Combuskin comes in basically for free on a knockoff. I mean, loses it to Violet, which isn't great, but it's not necessarily lead. It's more that he actively picked up the momentum. Turn 4, Combuskin's in. It's directly Swords Dancing on a Tangela, and from there he doesn't let it. He doesn't let it go.
Yeah. I'd say that's the thing. It's like you get the momentum and you just sort of the game spirals out of control. And I feel like that's Dibs sort of wanted the chaos because that's how his team operates. Whereas Lax was kind of was constantly trying to like refrain from it. It's more like Lax got pushed into a corner and like Dibs wanted him in that corner, in that area. So. I also think it makes a good case for the Jinx again. Like, we saw Jinx used, twice this week already, and I feel like it's one of the better Pokemon for like, not necessarily, I guess you could say luring the Dark types that, like, are within the tier, so, like, Spiritomb, Skuntank. I feel like it's actually quite good at, luring them, putting them to sleep, and forcing switches. Because a sleeping Skuntank is often hard to like get away because it's not necessarily hugely bulky and not necessarily hugely powerful either. So it's very difficult to force switches with.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like Jinx was underrated. Well, it was overrated, and then it became underrated again because of the drops, and then it's becoming like really more prominent now. And I feel like it's an exciting.
Well, yeah, it's kind of hard to say how much anything is going to become prominent because the real tier shift should be coming, soon. So anything we say here obviously got to take it with a big grain of salt. But yeah, I do agree that Jinx could definitely stand a bit of a comeback.
Yeah. As far as the game is concerned, like I feel like it was one of those results where it's sort of weird. Like you don't really see how, like, Lax didn't make a misplay. That's the thing. Like, he never, like, there was no play that you could go to Lax and say, you made this mistake, that's why you lost.
I mean, yeah, the big thing was, like, not getting that it was Swords Dance Combuskin instead of Special Combuskin, which is, like, very reasonable why he would get that wrong. And honestly, he didn't really have any good checks to SD Combuskin. We don't really have physical fire types. His fire resist is AV Hitmonchan, which is in itself, I don't think, great. I think a Pyroar, like just Specs Pyroar, did so much work to his team. So, if anything, like the mistake was just not having a fire resist, which, that's not good in this meta. Because one thing we did see this week is Pyroar also being quite good. That was a trend. But I agree.
It's one of those Pokemon where it's so fast. It's so fast, and it has so much wall breaking potential. It's really tough to check at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that's good for the highlight games, and we can just move on to the more general stuff. As far as crazy sets, like I was saying, I think it kind of got toned down this week. I brought a Toucan to my game. That's probably not super worth mentioning. It's a Toucan. The only like real interesting set I can think of was something I built this week. I built my team. I built TJ's team with the Shiftry plus Jinx, and then I also built Kushalos' team, where he brought Choice Specs Lilligant versus Aerofine, which is something Keo actually recommended I try, and it was actually really good. And if you didn't see Kushalos versus Aerofine, just the first 3 or 4 turns, where he leads Lilligant and Aerofine leads Primeape, and Aerofine U-turns with his Scarf. Primeape does like 70%, goes to Mesprit, I guess, trying to sleep fodder it, as Kushalos just pedal dances and does like 70-80%. And then Aerophine's like, well, shit, he's locked into Petal Dance. I better go Clefairy. And Clefairy's just clean 2-hit KO'd by Petal Dance before he can revenge the Lilligant with the Scarf Primabuturn. But that was just like obviously the absolute best case scenario. But I thought Specs Lilligant was super cool. It 2-hit KOs max HP Oricorio Sensu, so like Fat Sensu is outsped and 2-hit KO'd. It is a roll if there's no rocks. It 2-hit KOs Skuntank.
It 2-hit KOs Fat Sensu?
It 2-hit KOs Fat Sensu, it 2-hit KOs Skuntank, and it 2-hit KOs Clefairy. You can pull up the calc. Let me do this real quick. So Lilligant, Quiver Dance, Choice Specs, and Petal Dance. Oricorio Sensu, 252 HP. It does 49.1 to 57.9, which is insane. Zero HP Skuntank takes 56 to 65 from a Petal Dance. Clefairy Special Defensive takes 47 to 56 with a 86.7% chance to 2-hit KO. Lurantis is 2-hit KO'd after Stealth Rock. No, it's a 15.2% chance to 2-hit KO after rocks and lefties. But I found like you chip it a little bit. Lurantis obviously like definitely is the kind of mon that gets chipped, and obviously you can kill it with HP Fire too. It's not a perfect mon. It can be very hard to know what to lock yourself into if you're facing Drampa, Alolan Exeggutor, Ferroseed. But like, as long as you don't have those kind of like ridiculous grass resist, I think it's really, really annoying at breaking down teams. Like even just the 4 teams that we mentioned, the highlight games, the grass resists there: Tangela, Scarf Togedemaru, Fat Sensu, AV Hitmonchan, Combuskin, Haunter, Skuntank, Shiftry, another Togedemaru, another Tangela. All of those are like in theory grass resists. There was a Metang. And that Metang is the only thing that is not 2-hit KO'd, which is like, really, really strong.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty good. I was going to ask you though, because in the game, you had the Specs Lilligant. I also saw the Oricorio Sensu and the Spiritomb. What inspired you to run that dual Ghost Core?
It honestly ended up being more of a coincidence. It wasn't originally Sensu. It was some other niche, weird mon. It was like Agility Hitmonchan or something bad like that. And I'm like, okay, this is stupid. I'm just going to run a Sensu. It wasn't really about the dual Ghost. It's just that they don't feel like they overlap in any way. They don't share weaknesses. Okay. They don't do remotely the same thing. They just both happen to work well on the team.
That's fair.
Oricorio does benefit a decent amount from the Specs Lilligant. It lures in, other Oricorios. It lures in Skuntank. It lures in Steel types, things like that. So, and then Spiritomb just happened to be there for trapping and whatever. So yeah, honestly, I just really can't think of many other crazy sets that were brought at all. Which is kind of why I went a little longer on that.
Yeah, I'm on the Specs Lilligant thing. It actually threw at KOs the Metang, and obviously Metang, when it's defensive, doesn't have a way of actually OKing Lilligant back. So
Metang's not exactly the super relevant threat, but still, that you can break it is nice.
Yeah, it's really easy to break them. Yeah, I think that set is more. It's more of those like risk reward sets. If you manage to like HP Fire the Ferroseed on the switch, like it's gonna do work. But if you Petal Dance the Ferroseed, like you're giving up loads of momentum, loads of spikes, pressure, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, and so, it's definitely a risk. I don't think it's hugely relevant or something like that's gonna replace Quiver Dance or whatever, because Quiver Dance is still like definitely it threatens most of the stuff we mentioned with just Sleep Powder and a Z move and Quiver Dance, but yeah. Plus, Specs Alolan and Exeggutor still gives a lot of competition.
Yeah, I feel like it's a pretty good lure though for what it's worth. Like
Yeah, no.
just chipping out at the.
The reason I can also talk about it so much is because it did its job really well that game.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we can just move on to the general like results, overall stuff. We had the Marowaks tying the Drampas. As the manager of the Drampas, I'm fine with that. Marowaks are definitely a very tough team. They're the number one team right now. Um, I am definitely sad. We had to sub out Tony at the last moment and put in Aaron Boyer Sunday night, and he ended up losing the game. It was the final game of the set, and if he won, then we won the week, and if he lost, we tied the week. And
Yeah, I do recall he didn't play that great in the game either.
no, he's just not as familiar with DPP. It's not his main thing.
Oh yeah.
We were definitely more reliant on Tony, so that was a bit unfortunate. He did try his best, but there were definitely places. Yeah, so overall, that's a little annoying. But he had a family emergency. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
We had the Dens, which is your team, winning 5-3 over the Blossoms in a fairly close set overall.
Yeah, it was close in quotation marks. I will say that because Anti got hacked versus
Yeah,
Charm Flash.
Anti-
and Pearl got hacked
Charm
versus
Flash-
50 miles per hour.
Yeah, Charm Flash actually is 2-0 right now over Ante and Lord Sample team, which is
Yeah.
on its face really good, but like he also hacks the hell out of both of them. So
Yeah. So
What are you
I don't
gonna
know how
do?
much you read into that, but statistics, yay.
honestly, I wasn't a fan of the team Pearl brought against the 50 MPH. To be completely honest, it was like Frogadier stuff, and I never
Yeah.
liked Frogadier stuff. So whatever.
Yeah, it was more
Um,
of like one of those, when we were theorem running about it, it was more of those like offense CTs, because we knew he liked offense. So we brought the Drifblim in, we brought the, general offensive threats, and it just didn't come off.
Yeah.
Miles per hour just brought us like a solid team and dodged a few moves, so
Although
not much you can do about that.
I am remembering now. You're like, okay, but Charm Flash sacks Dante. But I do remember a big upset that I noticed was Jerry, who's not a bad player, but not like super notable in PU. He just kind of like comes around for PUPL, and he beat FLCL on the Blossoms, and that was like purely due to a late game crit. When I saw Jerry post the win, I was pretty fascinated to see the upset because I thought you would have brought some like FLCL counter team or something, but it was literally just a late game crit. So
I think Jari is convinced that if he hadn't missed a toxic somewhere, that the throw would be in range anyway.
Please.
I don't know how he got to that conclusion somehow. I think it was on the mess brick. So he prevented the healing wish so that the throw wasn't going to be at that 100%. It was at 50% when we crit.
That's
So,
whatever.
I told him to lay off the stuff that they have in Amsterdam, but yeah. Apart from that, there were a couple of swing games like that. Jari game was like it was real like a momentum turner. Like we won like 3 on the bounce after Jari won. So
Yeah.
it was a close week overall.
And speaking of momentum, we saw Team Boku no Pico winning 6-2 versus the Mistresses, and they actually won 3 games on. By Wednesday, they had won 3 games, and no other teams had played. But they won both their
Yeah.
ORAS games and the DPP game, which was a huge momentum bringer. Also, speaking of Haxi games, you had Robert Alphonse, who, like he admitted in his win post, totally stole a win from Tasker. Which I was definitely looking forward to that game. It was a little dumb of an ending, but you can see otherwise like some very interesting team choices there. We talked about the Dibs game, which was a big highlight, but otherwise not really necessarily huge upsets or anything there.
Yeah, I feel like the Misdreavus is kind of showing what we sort of predicted in our pre-PUPL podcast. We were saying that Tasker and Dibs are going to be the guys carrying up front, and it's going to be up to the lower SM players to really sort of like pick up the slack and pick up wins versus like other players who don't necessarily play PU as well. I feel like that's where they're falling behind. That and Oras are the key areas where the Mischievous really need to work on.
Yeah, relying on Feliburn and Ziri. Felleburn is not bad and has played in several PUPLs, but Ziri is definitely someone who's kind of more like gotten to the scene through the tournaments room and is definitely not super proven. And I wasn't a huge fan of his game versus Snaga, but we'll see how they can bounce back. And at worst, they definitely have like some solid subs to come in. So definitely,
Yeah, I think of all teams to lose to, you probably wouldn't like be too angry to lose to the Boku no Pika team.
that's
So
also true. They are a very solid team, I think.
yeah, as long as you can pick up wins versus the rest of them, you're pretty solid for playoffs.
Yeah. Finchinator remaining really unlucky. He actually has a really bad record in PUPL overall, but he's kind of just like really not been lucky at all. I was his manager last year. I think he went like
Yeah.
1-4 or something, but he just could not get anything to go his way ever. And we've kind of seen that so far with the 0-2. I feel kind of bad for the dude. Like,
Yeah,
not
yeah. Finch
fun
is,
at all.
it's Finch is one of those guys. Like he's everybody knows he's a good player, and everybody like appreciates that he's a really like invested, really good player. But like sometimes you're just not got like the luck of the draw with you, and like Pokemon is one of those games where like when you're tilting and you really need some luck, it's just going to give you more bad luck. So it's going to be hard for him for sure to pick it back up, but I remain confident that he can pick it up for at least the late season.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so I think that pretty much wraps up the PUPL stuff. Next week is not gonna be posted for another few hours, but we'll definitely be talking about that. Stats will be coming out, although week 3 at least will still be working off the previous PU meta. Don't know what that's going to be like at all. Stats are coming for a really annoying time for me, which sucks as tier leader, but I'm not going to have like a ton of time to be playing around and trying to figure out what's broken and quick ban stuff as soon as possible to get the tier in line or whatever. So hopefully the tier is doesn't burn down while I'm inactive.
Yeah, what was going on with stats? Because I heard there was like
So
people were
stats
saying
went
the stats
out,
are broken.
Antar posted the stats, and everyone's like, okay, here's the stats. And then it turned out, no, he did something. There's a problem with the script. I don't want to get too much into the details because honestly, I have no idea what's like private tier leader knowledge and what I'm allowed to say. There was some issue with the scripts and accidentally like not reading stats from June or May, I think correctly, or I don't really know. Point is, those stats could very easily be entirely not representative of what ends up happening. Obviously, like we're still going to expect Gastrodon, Statland, and Sandslash to leave us, but the rest could be who knows. So yeah, any last comments?
Nope. I think PPL is going well so far. I feel like it's all the teams that we thought were going to be like up there are up there, and all the teams that we thought would be lagging a little bit behind are still in the chase still. So
yeah, no teams are really doing that bad. There's my team, the Drampas and the Blossoms at one tie, one loss. Still wish we didn't get looked out of that tie. Anyway, yeah, but like that's still a very doable position. I think it's kind of unfortunate that we have to play each other because whoever loses, if one of us loses that set, then like for us, like if we win that set versus the Blossoms, we'll be like, okay, we're totally in this to qualify, and then the Blossoms will just be kind of stuck behind, or vice versa. And then if we tie, we're both doing pretty mediocre. So that's kind of gonna make or break our whole season really based on this next week. And then I guess if we're talking about that, might as well go through the rest of the schedule. So week 3, you have the Mischievises versus the Marowaks, which I think the Mischievises, if they win, will be a huge equalizer because they're 1-1. The Marowaks are in the lead, so them winning would kind of just like bring all the teams closer together. But if Marowaks win, they kind of just pull ahead from the crowd and will look very strong to qualify. And then you have Dedens versus Boku no Pika, where I don't remember. So Dedens are 1-1, and Boku no Pika are 1 win, 1 tie. So that'll also be the same case of like, if you guys manage to win, it'll be a big equalizer. But if they manage to win, they'll be pulling ahead to a great spot. So yeah, that's what we can expect for week 3. I hope you guys enjoyed this really awful outro where we're like, let's finish, and then no, let's talk about the schedule, and now it's like I don't know how to end it, so I'll just talk about how bad the outro is, because haha.
Yeah.
Anyway, see you guys next week. I have no plans to miss the week this time, so yeah, thanks for putting up with stuff.